So whether you're a blue shirt, a white shirt, maybe running a fractional on Wall Street, bidding on these games, or a green shirt like me, or maybe you're overseas, it really doesn't matter. We're all heritage junkies. And that's what the market is all about. So let's take a look at all the signature auctions for 2023.
Yeah, so I talked about the moves that I made in the January signature, but I also wanted to touch on some notable sales, some interesting sales that kind of stuck out and I remembered once I reviewed everything that sold. So one of the big things in January signature that you probably remember is that there were two Super Mario Bros. 3s that were 988++. There was a CGC copy and there was a WATA copy.
This is when CGC is still fairly new in terms of the grading game, right?
Correct. It was a big barometer. I mean,
Yeah.
988++ SMB3 is awesome.
Yeah, those are awesome. And I know it was not as expected, right?
Yes, it was. So the CGC, and I'm just rounding these numbers. They're not exact.
Of course.
Yeah. So the CGC copy did about 60 grand and the WATA copy did about 38 grand. That was crazy. That was a shockwave. If you were on social,
that was like CGC has really arrived. I mean, I know there was a Zelda that we're going to talk about later, but that was surprising for me too, because since then I've noticed that grading standards are slightly different between the two companies.
Agreed. It's something I've certainly learned as well, is that I wish I would have wrote down the periods where different grading companies graded certain ways and all that stuff. Like it's valuable. It's useful to know. Okay, so a couple other key sales at this auction. Toe Jam and Earl is a Sega Genesis game that I've never seen in the open market. It was a pretty good condition game. I can't remember exactly. It might have been a 9.4A or something like that, but it did 31 grand, and I thought that was mighty strong, but it was just, I think one of the themes that we saw through this year is that collectors were dominating the market, and some of the higher collector stuff started to perform better.
Yeah.
Do you remember that overall?
Yeah, I remember doing a podcast about rarity rising, and that collector games, the obscure stuff that you don't see maybe once a year, twice a year, maybe once every 2 years, was actually, I would say, more defensive. So it wasn't dropping as much as the other games, the big popular titles.
Right. Yeah. So other than that, I just for my own personal, I always note Super Mario 3 sales across these auctions because they're pretty common.
Yeah.
By common, I mean, they're still highly desirable, but you see them come up a lot. And the 9.4A, it's worth noting that it sold for $5,200 in that auction. We're going to be looking at some Super Mario 3, comps throughout this year. And they're all going to be roughly around a 9.4A or something.
Yeah, I did the same thing for those barometers I was going to talk about later. I picked SMB3 as one of the 5, and I cut it off at 9.4. I think I didn't even track any 9.2s because the prices have come down so much.
Yeah. Okay. So other than that, there was just a lot of high quality titles in the auction. But I know you went through the January signature. Did you see anything that kind of sticks out to you like almost 12 months later?
Yeah, I looked back, and what I did is kind of pick a game that surprised me every signature, because I can't remember everything. There's just so many games going off. eBay, PWCC, I'm bidding on a lot these days. Even Golden had some video game auctions. And the thing that surprised me about January signature, I remember as I think back, was Mario Kart 64. And this is before the rumor that the 9.68++ WATA turned into a 9.88+ CGC. I don't know if that's confirmed or not, because there were two 9.88++s, so I don't know. No, there was two 9.88+ CGCs that went off this year. When I was going into that signature, like late 2022, thinking about the market, thinking about CGC coming on, thinking about them putting up a top of the pop, Nintendo Mario cardboard piece that we hadn't seen ever. And I don't think there are any 9.8 WATAs as of today, or at least as of June. Has there been an update, by the way, since June?
I don't know. It never got to the
Let me
it was
pull
supposed
that
to
up
be like
real
up
quick.
it was
Mario
supposed to be
Kart.
dynamic. That never happened, right? The pop
No,
report was supposed to eventually be dynamic, and we
it
have not
still
gotten
says
that.
June 2023 as of the last day of 2023 and first print Mario Kart. If you're new to the hobby, there's 3 print variations. There's the E rating, the K to A, and then the first print. There are no 9.8 Wada first prints. So 2 9.8 CGCs hit the market. And what surprised me was I was looking at both of those companies kind of equal, right? Like you said on the
Mhm.
SMB3, the numbers were completely off. 60,000 versus 38. But on Mario Kart, since it was top of the pop, as far as pops that we had at the time, I don't think we
Yeah.
had gamer stonks doing data yet, which is reverse engineered. If you're new to the hobby, you can go to gamerstonks.com and you can get CGC sealed pops just by registering. It's free. And those are kind of backward engineered based on what's hit the market. But it was the first to market. It was top of the pop. It had all the, all the boxes checked to where I thought it would do 6 figures. I thought for sure this is a 6-figure game. And what did it do? Something like 83 or 80, I can't remember, 81. And I think the 96A++ WADA did 144, only April 2022.
Wow.
So that's only 8 months prior. So
Yeah.
that was a really big surprise for me because of first to market, top of the pop, all the things that had caused basically stonking, this new word that I learned from Get the Great Games, all those like first print, check that box. Is it first to market? Check that box. Is it the top of the pop? Check that box. And that kind of told me that, okay, 2023 is kind of starting off without a bang.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. And I remember, when CGC first came out, they were probably getting a lot of crosses thrown their way. Everybody in their collection has something they feel is undergraded. And then there was also not a ton of risk in the system that they had in place if you sent something highly graded, in that they would only grade it if it was the same grade or gonna hit higher, something like that. And so you could send in your high stuff, and you weren't going to get a lower grade or something like that. And that sounds like what was done with the Mario Kart, if that is indeed what happened. But that jogs my memory. It reminds me of that time.
I
If that makes sense.
believe that, I mean, I would say it's a better than 50-50 chance that I had confirmation from somebody very knowledgeable in the hobby that at least one of them was a cross. But that information didn't hit me. That was private, the DMs through Facebook or something. That did not hit me until probably mid 2023. So
Yeah.
I don't think the market knew about that. And the final one that went off, cratered. But I'll talk about MK64 as a barometer if we can get into that year-end review after we get through all the signatures. What about April, Tony?
Yeah. Yeah. So April, uh, it had, like, the hammer price on everything sold was $2.1 million. So it was up, about 300K. And there was right around the same amount of bidders, right around 850. So some notables that immediately jogged my memory about this time was that the newsstand CGC 9.8 number one Nintendo Power sold for 108 grand.
Yeah.
I'm not too savvy with Nintendo Power collecting, but that was a huge surprise to me in a good way. I thought it went, anything that was breaking 100K at this time was a victory for us,
I agree.
just to see the market,
Yes, 6
kind of
figures.
leveling off.
If you're
Yeah.
new to the hobby, we were used to a lot of 6-figure games in Heritage Signature auctions regularly. And I think this is the first year where it got really thin at the top. I mean, how many do you think went off for 6 figures across the board? Was it 5 or 6, or it was less than 10, I
Yeah.
feel like.
Yeah, less than 10, but there were several that popped up through the year, for sure. But
The days of $1 million games are unfortunately gone, but man, that
yeah,
was a wild ride in 2021, 2022. Yeah.
yes, it was. Yes. Okay. So here's a couple other notables that that were interesting. A first print Zelda with the cassette in the manual, a 9.2 CIB sold for $16K, which was really, really strong for a CIB at that point.
Yeah.
I like that sale.
I want to make
The GoldenEye.
quick point there. I mean, since then, I consider CIB actually cratering. A lot of people don't see that on social media because a lot of people have diamond hands and they're asking quite a bit compared to the open market. But at that time, CIB was actually holding on. Even though sealed had come down earlier, I would say that as far as the cycle goes, it's kind of like sports cards, then Pokemon, then sealed video games, then CIB, then comics, as far as kind of what started the downward lower low trend.
Yeah. The CIB stuff for me, like my personal preference is to hold something sealed. It just feels a little different, but I do love a good high grade CIB. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've
So
way back on CIB over the last 8 months since that Zelda.
Yeah. All right. So let's see here. The GoldenEye, I was targeting a 9.6 A+ in the January auction, and it went for about $15,000 then. It dropped to $10K in the April signature. That is a home run buy, in my opinion.
Was that a 9
getting
A++? Do you remember?
Yeah. It was I think it was just an A+, but I think $10,000 is a beautiful price for a GoldenEye that's that mint.
Because my buddy did do a private sale a few months ago for a A++ at 15 to the dentist. And he had looked at that as just an amazing, amazing piece because I don't believe there's many 9.8s, if any at all. Are there? I can't remember. Let me look up GoldenEye on first print.
I don't remember a 9.8 A++ ever seeing that on the...
Yeah, there's only two. And they're both A+. So that's the way the dentist was looking at that because he has the investing mindset. Yeah. He's buying it for his group of investors. And he said a 9.6 A++ is as good as you're going to get. And that's one thing I wanted to say when you were asking me about the overall market is we have diamond hands that are just so much stronger than the other hobbies. We are just not going to see this stuff come out, even though things are cratering in the mid-low range. The economy doesn't look so hot. Whereas, you can go buy yourself a nice Spider-Man comic book or a Jordan at 80 to 90% off the highs because there's a high pop there. So, 9.6 could be a very, very nice grade, especially A++.
Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt. All right, so a few more notables. The Duck Hunt Matte Sticker Seal, 9.6 A++, did $120,000. I thought I remembered being in Clubhouse with you and a couple other collectors. I remember everybody feeling like it was going to hit higher. The general feel in the market was that it could do upwards of 250. I might be wrong. That might be a false memory, but
maybe. Looking back, of course not. But at that time, I think we were still, bullish, even though the market had really turned. It's hard to tell when you're in the moment, It's really hard to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like you were talking about how stuff doesn't come to market as much, how, there's more diamond hands in this hobby. That's one of the things that's always kept me with a little bit of FOMO, even through these lows. That these games are special and they're not common, and you don't see them, and you may only have one chance at them in your price range. And so you have to do what you can to be ready.
Games were meant to be played, and it's almost like sneakers, the early Jordan sneakers. They were meant to be worn. This type of stuff is just so rare. But again, rarity's not everything we learned in the market. And you can learn more about that with Get the Great Games. He's on YouTube. He does shorts. I think he might be on TikTok. He's got a podcast. He really covers the market like, day-to-day pulse type of thing.
Yeah, so there's a couple more interesting things in April, but are there any takes?
I couldn't pick anything out that really surprised me big time. I mean, I was happy to see those big sales. Of course, always 6-figure sales are good for the hobby, good for the market. If you're a long-term bull like me, I still believe long term, even though we're coming down. I really do think, it's a great time to enter, a great time to buy. And I think this hang tab, this 8.0 round that went off, really kind of surprised me in many ways, in that I think what really surprised me is that, first of all, I just typed in, sealed Marios over the years, and I typed in round. You have to log into Heritage. I typed in round sealed. And there's an 8.5A did 33 grand. There's a Mario Bros, which we won't count. We're talking SMB1, which is the barometer. And, how many went off? How many sealed SMB1s went off at Heritage for the whole year? I feel like I'm counting like one. I can't find any. And did the 96,000 surprise me? It's like, I don't know. Looking back, I don't know. At the time, I don't know. An 8.0 hang tab round, they're scarce. They're rare. They've got everything going for them. They're a triple threat. But in that grade range, traditionally, you don't see other Nintendo titles, other Mario titles going off in 8.0. So that surprised me in many ways, but most importantly was scarcity. And if you're new to the channel, we talk a lot about rarity and scarcity. Rarity is about the supply side economics. Scarcity is about the demand. This 8.0 that goes off for six figures in a softening market, as the market's coming down, tells you someone might be grabbing a placeholder. Someone might be grabbing, the only round that comes up to market on Heritage at the time. Somebody's grabbing what they can. And to me, that's positive for the hobby.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I glossed over that sale, but you're 100% right. Like, Mario is king, and it's all
Mario's king, and rounds are probably in diamond hands, never coming out. So in other words, as we look forward, the quality might be getting worse on Mario. I'm talking about rounds. Ovals is a whole different situation. Talking about rounds, I'm talking about Left Brothers, First Prince, stuff like that. When are we going to see a 9.6 round? When are we going to see a 9.2 round, even in a bad market? So that's something to keep an eye out for as you go into 2024, 2025. Can you pick up a black box Mario?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so is there anything else you want to touch on in April, or are you ready to move into?
No, I was just going to go with one big surprise for each signature, and we can transition into July. No worries.
Excellent. Perfect. Okay, so July, the total sales was down to 1.7 million, so it was less than the January or April signature. This was the auction where the Pokemon Ruby 10A++ did 42K. I thought that number was less than it was less than what I expected that it would do, but I think that I saw feedback in both directions that it was a good or a bad sale. So I'll assume that it was right there in the middle or something like that. Do you remember that sale?
I remember that blew up a little bit on Instagram, and then Get the Greg, I think, made a short for Facebook. And it's a small community, so we don't have a lot of content creators, but I threw it up. And it was still a time in the market, in my opinion, where 10.0s were basically the scarcest thing across the board in the hobby. It's not like sports cards where you got 10s left and right. I'm not a comment guy. I assume they're really rare over there too, but it's cardboard, it's Nintendo, it's a 10.0. So yeah, sky's the limit, right? In the moment.
Yeah. So I was an early adopter of the 10.0. So the first one that I grabbed was the Wii U Twilight Princess. And at that time, there weren't more than 10.0s out there, I feel like. And then they opened up the Switch and modern console stuff. And I remember when they were all put on, it was when people started sending in case packs.
Yeah.
What was that?
Switch case pack.
Yeah. What was the guy's name who had a nice little website?
Brett with
Like
Standard
yeah,
Gaming, he went
Standard Gaming.
hard into the kind of the junk slab market, which is where I am now because the
Yeah,
market had come down. But at that time, the market had not come down that low yet. So he had a whole, blue ocean, if you will, to attack the hobby with the mindset coming from coins, where he had slabbed, I think, 350,000 coins in his career. And if you look at the
yeah,
coin hobby overall, basically everything's slabbed. So the way he looked at our hobby was just a virgin landscape of raw material that was meant to be slabbed. And he's right, I guess, long term, maybe all these games will be slabbed. But I think when you're sending in case packs, especially Switch, it watered down the scarcity of the general 10.0 hallowed grade up until then. And I think it actually affected things like Nintendo Cardboard 10.0s or like Wii U or other consoles.
yeah. So I had one of the few experiences of holding a 10 in my hand because I had that Wii
That
U
was
Twilight.
scarce. I mean, the Wii U 10.0s were
Yeah.
scarce.
Yeah. So I knew what it felt like, and it just felt different.
Yeah.
And I like when I got that 10 delivered to me, it was cool. It was a nice piece of my collection. So when Standard Gaming, the first move they made was to put out maybe 5 or 6 Switch 10.0s. And it was like Pokemon Arceus and, some Zelda
Yeah,
games.
I remember that.
They had Odyssey, Super Mario Odyssey, all that. I bought, if he posted 6 on that website, I bought the first 5.
Wow.
I loved 10s at that point, and I was a huge fan. I'm currently a huge fan of the Switch. I played a lot with my kids. I'm actively involved in it, and so there's some games that I love in there. So I grabbed 5, and they were about $1,200 a piece at that time.
Wow.
And so what I thought that price was solid, but little did I know that that there was going to be, I don't know how many Breath of the Wild 10s exist right now, but there's probably more than 50.
I've been watching
Uh,
Super Mario Wonder, and it's pretty sad. I mean, I think
yeah,
on the
it is. It is.
300 or 400, is it?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
down there now. It's way below a grand, and
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Switch is great for liquidity. We're in the era of junk slabs. It's great to get people into the hobby. There's a bigger population of people that are active in the lower end. But if you're talking about a long-term hold, I just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of learned through that process of grabbing those 10s. I did liquidate them at the right time to where it wasn't a loss overall or anything like that.
You
But
made money on the
uh,
10 first moving?
I made like, I think I sold like the Odyssey sold at auction. Like I set some of them at a penny auction on eBay, and I think it did $1,900, which was a nice sale
Nice.
for that. Yeah, because a lot of stuff came down below. I think the lowest one I ever sold was probably $500 or $600, something
Yeah, I
like
mean,
that.
looking back, those are
Um,
big numbers, but
yeah,
at the time in the hobby, 10.0s and accessibility to them was very, very limited. I mean, this is a
yeah,
tiny little hobby if you're new that has, a couple dealers, a handful of websites, and we just don't have a lot of material, especially in 10.0.
yeah. Okay, so that Pokemon Ruby 10 did 42 grand. A Super Mario Brother 3 98A++. I don't remember if it was CGC or WATA, did 23 grand.
23.
That's a pretty serious drop by
I can talk
the
about
middle of
that.
the
I
year.
can talk about that in the next segment. I got that on
Yeah,
my little
that's
chart, my little graph here. Yeah, that was a severe drop.
yeah. Yeah. So other than that, I just realized in looking at all the stuff I bullet pointed that the only game I've ever sent to a signature auction at Heritage went off at this signature auction, and it was the Poop Slinger 9.8A++.
Nice.
Uh, yeah,
Wow.
I,
You sent that in
yes,
raw?
that was mine. No, I had multiple copies of Poop Slinger in my lifetime. It's a short span because I think it was like 2018, 2019 game, something like
Yeah.
that. But this was a 90 that I crossed, a 95. This was a VGA 95 that I crossed. And people will hate to hear that.
Oh yeah.
But I just liked 988 plus plus. I thought I had a chance at a 10.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't why I submitted, but I like 988 plus plus.
Yeah.
You know,
So you
probably a
you
mistake.
crossed that sucker. Wow.
I crossed it. It was a crazy cross. But I did. So that went off for 3,800. I think I paid $5K for that. So that was a loss, but it was, I guess,
Damn.
it was a disappointment because when you throw games that are crazy like this up, they could do big money. So you always are probably a little more optimistic
Yeah.
when the dust settles. But it was fine. It was okay. I was okay with it. At that time in the market, I accepted that I could take a loss on that game.
And it's good that you got experience at Signature. I mean, I've sent in, maybe hundreds of games to Heritage and only a few made it in Signature. But overall, I don't like not being able to control the timing of
Agreed.
of what you're got money into. If you sent it in raw and you're in low, it makes sense to take a chance on a Signature for sure, even in a down market.
Right.
So my surprise for July was really the cassette Zelda. And, I've been chasing Zelda. I've been, buying and selling dozens of Zelda TMs, and it took me 3 years to build up from 5.5, 7.5. I got my hands on an 8.0. I think I had 1.85 at one time. Fast forward to the day, I'm sold out of Mike Tyson CIBs, sold out of Zelda. Well, actually, I have one Zelda left, some cartridges as well. But what surprised me was the cassette. And when we say cassette, if you're new to the hobby, we're talking about the manual. And it was the first time I saw in the graded game hobby where a premium was attached to the subcomponents of the overall CIB. So the piece itself went off for $29K, but it went off for more than I think we really thought it should because of the cassette manual. And that's the reason it was, one of the highest in the world, if not top of the pop, subgrade for the cassette manual, which is quote unquote the first print manual. And if you're new to the hobby, you can either have the first print or the second print manual inside a matching CIB. But it showed me that the hobby is continually evolving. Even in a down market, the sealed was starting to come down at that time. CIB was still strong, a defensive position, and first prints was still pretty good. Maybe not today, 6 months later, but at that time, and that was a really, really strong sale that told me that old rumor, what is it? Buy on the rumor, sell on the news. To me, that was a foreshadowing of box-only slabs. I do believe manual-only slabs are coming. I've heard rumors from CGC, one of the head graders. And of course, we already have cart-only. And we're still seeing a lot of variations in subgrades versus putting it all together. But my dream one day, maybe this year, is to see a CIB auction with 3 subgraded slabs put together. And I want to know, is that going to do better or worse than the whole thing packaged together? And to me, we would have run the whole gamut. And then the next beyond that would be, well, if a warranty card is thrown in there or a battery save sheet or a poster, is it going to be this big display piece where you're capturing history as opposed to nostalgia? And you know me, I'm always looking for that transition. So what did you think about that cassette Zelda that almost broke 30 grand, Tony?
Yeah, that was a big jump because we talked about a 9.2 doing 16, which I thought was healthy back in April. So yeah, that was really cool to see. I kind of forgot how well that game did. And to be honest, the thing that I wrote down about this particular auction, which is the July, wrapping it up, is that there was a lot of smoke right in the 3K range. So like if you had the ability to put about 3 grand together, you could get a pretty solid game. So like Street Fighter 2 968 plus for 3,300, or like Star Fox 948 plus for 2,200.
Wow,
that's
a nice buy.
There was 30 or 40 games where I was just thinking to myself, like, these may dry up. Like there was enough of those in that auction. So that was, if you had money sitting around, that was a good auction to buy in by my standards. So anything else for July? You ready to move?
Yeah, let's go to November, and then we probably will wrap up this little segment, take a little break.
Okay. All right. So it's worth noting, I'm going to bring it in here, that in between July and November signature auctions at Heritage, Golden had a September auction that they threw an Ocarina of Time, a 10A++ that did 156 grand. I thought that was soft.
Really?
I think that's soft. Yeah, I still think that's soft. I remember in Clubhouse the year before saying to you guys, like, what happens if we get a cardboard 10A++ of a premium title like
That was a
and
question in Clubhouse.
I thought
That's right.
yeah, I thought that was the sky. I thought the sky was
$1 million
so
at
I
that
thought
time, right? $1 million or
yeah,
high six
yeah,
figures. Okay, I
yeah, that's a
remember this
growth.
OOT now. Yeah. Up until
Yes,
then, we hadn't had very many six-figure games for the whole year, right? We just had the Duck Hunt, and then
correct,
we didn't
correct,
have much, but yeah.
correct,
So you think
correct.
it's a $250,000 game, is what you're saying?
I
And
do. I do.
you're talking long run. I think that's a good thesis, long run, because I don't think cardboard's going to exist much in 10.0. And unfortunately, the Switch
No.
situation has kind of, if you're a newbie, you might not think 10.0 across the board is as rare as it is in cardboard or disc or Switch cases. But have
Right.
we had any other 10.0 significant titles? I remember we had a Bomberman, which didn't do very well. There was like Wolverine. I mean, what have we had? Like 5 across the whole freaking hobby in 3, 4, 5 years?
Yeah. Yeah, the two most notable, what likely would have been the best 10 sales would have been the Karate Kid for Nintendo and the Wolverine at that time. I don't think there was better cardboard out there in a 10.0 until Ocarina.
No, like you said, the
And
marquee. You're using the word marquee. In other words, super heavy, like super heavy.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so that
I
was
agree. Long run. In the next bull run, that OOT comes back to market and it cracks $250,000. I agree with you, Tony.
yeah, it's one. I don't have any expectation that a second one will ever surface. And
Okay, let's do November.
I,
We're 32 minutes in,
yeah,
so we'll
yeah,
wrap it up
yeah, yeah,
after
yeah, yeah.
November.
For sure. All right. So $1.8 million in total sales in the November auction, 943 bidders. That is almost 100 more unique bidders than the April signature and more than 100 than the July signature. So we're starting to get some more bidders into the picture,
Yeah.
which kind of adds up with what I've been feeling in evaluating the market, which we can talk about later. But the key sales, the NES Deluxe set, VGA 85 sold for 120 grand. It wasn't a qualified, it was a unopened deluxe set.
Mm-hmm.
The Left Bros 9.4, probably A plus. I can't remember what the letter grade was, but a Left Bros sold for 108 grand, which was healthy. That was a pretty big rebound from a previous sale earlier in the year, I think.
I think it was at 9 plus, and I jotted that down as something to talk about.
Yeah. Yep. That's about it. Good buys. I didn't talk about good buys in the other auctions, but in this particular one, you could have got a VGA 85 Super Mario 64 for $5 grand, which I think long run is probably going to be a good buy.
I agree.
Yeah. The one, like, I don't even think I could watch this auction because I wasn't able to be present with any kind of bidding. So sometimes the best thing to do is shut it off. Rather than watch the auction and end up grabbing stuff.
I mean, full disclosure, I don't bid on the first day of signature. I'm not a millionaire. I'm not that deep-pocketed to where I can bid on this stuff. I just, ooh and ah at the eye candy. And the biggest piece I saw, this is my favorite piece I've ever seen at signature, period, was the 9.8 Teen GTA. This is a piece that, I want to get somehow, but I just know there's a handful on the planet. Beginning of a franchise. Yeah. It was an error. First print. It just checks all the boxes, but I don't even remember what it did. It might have done 10, 20 grand or something.
Yeah, that's a neat one to pull out. I know you're a GTA fan. Like, I
mean, I'd rather have PC, but I've come to the conclusion that sealed console first editions are the bomb. That's the bomb, and it's the smart play.
Yeah. Yeah, so the one other cool sale that I wish I would have been present for, it was you'll like this. It was the Wii console, the red version of the Wii console. It was a VGA 90, and it sold for $1,600. And I would have loved to grab that.
Yeah, I haven't gotten
You know,
a
like
console game, but damn, if I
right.
owned a home, if I had deep pockets, I mean, it's a natural evolution, just like we're going into components. It's a natural
Yeah,
evolution for the hobby, which I think is a very healthy thing.
yeah. Okay, so
So that about does
that
it for the
about wraps it
signatures
up.
then?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We've covered all the signatures.
Yeah,
Yep.
for this segment, we're in 35 minutes, so I think we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back to kind of do an overview of 2023.